What's up, man?
Do you want my music? Do you want my music?
I want your music. You're already taking over the podcast.
No, I'm kidding with you, man.
From Long Island, New York, Mr. Adam Posner, Pozcast. What's up, man?
Yes, it's interesting because I always talk to people. They're like, "Why is it the Pozcast? Your name is Posner, right?" Because Posner could be pronounced Posner and Posner. The thing is, I play on that because a lot of times people call me Posner, and ever since I was a kid, the nickname was Poz. And when it came time to launch the show, I was like, there wasn't even like that was the idea, that was the name, and it just works with the brand. And it's like when I'm at events and shit, people are like, "Oh, what's up, Poz?" And it's like
so good.
It just works. It just
that's
I was
so
like, finally,
good.
I did something right.
I've never had a good nickname, man. And
well,
yeah, when I see,
come on,
dude, I get the best one I ever had was Griswold. Right, because for Chris, from Vegas Vacation, right. That was a good one. They call me Grizz. Again, people make the Superman remark, and I'm kind of like, oh yeah, I never heard that one before. There's really no good ones. People do Clarky, and it's like I'm not 8 anymore. I just there's no. I don't have a good nickname, man. I don't have a good nickname.
We'll think of one by the end of the show, man. Well, thank you for having me, man. I mean, we've been yapping for a while. We've connected.
Yeah,
we're in the same world, and the one thing just to give you a little bit of a shout out to. We're connected because we have this abundancy mindset, right? We all lift each other up. We all work together. And we're in this kind of world of like, we're all, whether it be you, Kevin, the whole squad, like we all work together. We all make each other money. We're all collaborative. And again, it goes back to rising tides lift all ships. And I think that a lot of recruiters and content creators too need to have this mindset, right? Because the only person you're really fucking competing against is yourself.
Yeah.
Right? Like, yes, I'm not saying like I'm going to go after your business and we're not going to, eat each other up. But find ways to complement each other, right?
When
like
you
we're solopreneurs,
right.
We're small business owners. We could lift each other up. It's a no-brainer. Change your mindset, people.
When you do it right, I don't even have the time or the energy or the skill set you have or the knowledge of your industry to go after your clients. I have no desire, and that's like when people I think get that scarcity, and I've heard it with like, well, what if I build them up on LinkedIn? What if they leave? Or I'm joining your program and you have an agency? Are you going to take all my clients? I was like, I don't want your clients. I don't want to deal with the hassle. Like I value my energy and my time and protect that. That's what the digital recruiter is about. I know that's what you're about. It's like the rising tides lifts all ships. And like, you have to kind of think about it that way. And I get why people don't, right? People have been hurt, been burned,
they've been burned before.
And when you get there, to me, nothing has been more worth it than getting to that place. And knowing what I can do to control that. Oh, it's magical, man. It really is.
It's my secret sauce. And people ask me all the time, they're like, oh, how do you do this? And like, Kevin and I talk about it all the time. And like, I'm in my element at events. And that's just by nature of my personality. I'm an extrovert. I'm a social animal. I love to work a room. I love to, spread out and then find somebody and go deep with them. But also know when like, there's a point of a conversation because you need to maximize your time at these things of like, cool. Great. Let's stay in touch, right? Like how do you walk away from that conversation and move on to the next one? So, for me, it's really about learning about people's backgrounds. And as you said it before we went on the air, it's like people really want to deal with humans that they like. Yes, they have the skill set, experience, product, service, yada, yada you want, but life's too short to work with fucking assholes.
Way, way too short. And, I'm not everyone's cup of tea, and I'm well aware of that. And I'm completely okay with it, right? Because I found like a great crew, and I know you feel the same way. And it's very freeing. And then it's kind of like, well, how do you go about that, right? How do you build your network? I know you were just at Transform. I definitely want to make sure we talk about that because there's a lot of recruiters, I think, that listen to this that have maybe never even worked in an office with other recruiters, right? Maybe they started in 2020 or never been to an event. I mean, I think there's a whole era of that recruiters that we're dealing with this decade. And then there's some before. And then like for me, I haven't been one of these events, like, because I went digital in 2020. And it's just, I don't know, it's cool. And I'm bringing that back this year. I want to go to Unleash. I want to go to RecFest, like a few of these other ones.
Yeah,
but
they're great.
Yeah, man, talk to us about Transform. What was that like?
Yeah, it was pretty cool for me. So I've been to a number of industry events, and they are interesting because it could go a few different ways. Some of them are very boring, but not this one. It also depends on the clientele, the programming, the quality, the logistics. Transform is at the top of the list as far as quality, production, and how they do it all. First and foremost, they rolled out the red carpet for me as a podcaster. They had an incredible podcast zone set up, the right setup, background, equipment, access, everything that you needed, resources. They had a dedicated, like an ambassador who was there for any questions or anything. So they understand the value of an event when you bring in podcasters because they're going to amplify the content, they're going to amplify the event and make it stronger for the following year. And me as a content creator, I'm smart enough to know that I'm going to tag them in everything. They've created custom content for me that I share. So it's a symbiotic relationship of the right way to leverage media. Yeah. Now, you talk about the caliber of attendees and sponsors. This was great. It was senior level decision makers on both sides, speakers and exhibition, folks that were on the exhibit floor. And it was a great collection of the, large enterprise HR and TA tech that the names that whether it be ATS platforms, benefits, insurance, and then all the ancillary services and technology around it. So it was quite educational for me too, to walk around and learn. What do you guys do? How does this interact? Who do you partner with? And just by having those like one-on-one, 5-10 minute conversations, you develop a rapport, you build your network, and then you set up follow-up calls. So when you return, the last 2 weeks have been all calls for me, exploratory calls that have led to some really interesting opportunities. And if they don't, great. What was it? 15, 20 minutes of your time. And now you're expanding your network and your reach.
I love the approach so much. And we're going to get into, get into the weeds of how to build the podcast, how to go about it, how to ask for guests, what to ask about. We'll get into all that. But you started your agency. Remind us when you started in 2019, but you started recruiting in 2015. Is that
right?
I
started 2015. This will be 7 years with NHP, which is crazy. August 30th will be 7 years of my own shop. Kevin and I started Probably Nothing Talent about 2.5 years ago. And I was just done working for other people. And it was kind of logical progression. 15 years working in advertising and marketing. 2015, literally next week, is my 9-year anniversary from getting fired from Vayner, which is the story that everyone's heard. We're not going to go back to that, but that's when I made the change, the pivot into recruiting, and I haven't looked back. Spent 2.5 years at search firms learning how to be a recruiter. And everyone out there, I preach this. There's an art. It's like real estate, right? Like people think that just because they sold a house or did some home improvement that they could be a real estate agent. No, you don't know shit. You got to learn the business. Same thing with recruiting. Just because you hired somebody as a hiring manager or you interviewed for a job. No, you can't just be a recruiter. Yes, there is a low barrier to entry, but that doesn't mean success, right? Because there is an art and a science to it. There is an art and a science to it. The art of conversation, the art of the search, the art of understanding a candidate's X factors and motivations. And we're not even getting to the client side of the art of it. Really understanding who is a good client, how to form a relationship with them, a partnership, and then the science, the data, the tech stack, your back-end systems, your processes. There's a lot to learn to be a successful recruiter.
It's endless.
Yeah, it's endless. It never stops. And you got to keep growing and learning.
Yeah, and he's mentioned the low barrier to entry, right? High bar to success, which you just listed out what that bar is. It is interesting. It's a double-edged sword. Some of the people we help the best are subject matter experts that come from accounting or finance or product or whatever that want to be in recruiting, right? They have hey, I know the role, I can recruit for it. The ones that work with us are the smartest ones because they know what they don't know about sales and about recruiting and all that. And then there's some that are like, I got this all figured out. How hard can recruiting be? I'm like, well, good luck. Because there's no way you
understand
can't.
How a contract works?
Yeah, you can't shortcut the reps, man. Like you just can't. And you and I know, we get all the stories. We know what's really going on versus what people present out there. And you can't shortcut the reps. You're going to faceplant. Like hiring managers, candidates, like everyone's got their own agenda, and nothing reveals that more than recruiting. Like nothing. And you can either do it with support or figure out the hard way.
And what about client management and customer service? Oof. Like I really truly think that I'm a great recruiter because I spent 15 years in account management and understanding how to manage relationships, under promise, over deliver, manage expectations. Those are my deal breakers, right? Those are my table stakes, whatever the hell you want to call it. And I think so many people don't know how to manage expectations with clients, with candidates, with prospects. It's an ongoing game, and that takes reps and experience.
Yeah, for people that don't
Can't just
know me,
deliver.
well, I mean, you did this at, I mean, account management. I mean, you were at Amex, American Express, you were at
Yeah.
SiriusXM, like companies that are like that
Corporate.
are known, right, for building up, having that loyalty, all that stuff. So, I mean, was there like some training, a process at each of those companies that you're just like, wow, this took it to a next level for me?
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's twofold there. So working on at ad agencies, I just learned over the years from growing from an assistant account exec up to an account director. Over the course of 15 years, I learned by watching. I learned by watching people who have done it for a long time. I learned the finesse. I learned the approach, the pragmatic approach. I really, for me, the concept of under promising and over delivering. So many people like, yeah, I'll get you 10 candidates this week. No, that's not the
Oh
truth.
man.
You can't control that X factor. And what's that going to do? It's going to set you up for failure. So you have to manage. Like, for example, if I'm talking to a new client and I'm like, hey, listen, I'm going to be realistic with you. It's going to take me 7 to 10 business days to do my research, start a search, engage, get these people on the phone, qualify them, and then present them to you. If it takes me 10 days, great. I'm still hitting that expectation. But guess what? Most likely I'm going to get them sooner than that. And that's going to make the team look good. So you got like, that's like a 101 shit right there.
Well, it's 101. A lot of people don't know. It's a lot of it is 3 days, 2 days. I'm like, why are we putting the pressure? Why are you putting that pressure on yourself, right? And I got to imagine your clients are coming to you. They've probably already worked with other agencies that have made these promises or those types of promises, and maybe didn't come through. So then you come in. What do they think? Like when you say 7 to 10 days, are they ever like kind of like, "Oh, that's a long time"? Or
Yeah,
2
no,
weeks?
no.
Like,
Some of them,
do you have to kind of battle that a little bit? Yeah.
Yeah, because some of them, a lot of companies expect for two different reasons that you just have a bench of qualified candidates ready to submit to them the next day. That is not the way this works, people. Now, for certain very niche industries, there are people who have that. If I say I just focus on oil drilling, engineering, certain software, certain this, that's all I recruit for, I'm going to have 30 people in my network because I'm talking to them all day long and I know who's available and who's not. But that's not what I do. And I'm not a generalist. I am a specialist, but I do cover a bunch of categories. I just don't have these people hanging around.
Well, and it's like sometimes you
available.
might, right? Sometimes you might, sometimes, like again, the way you're framing it is you're doing the work to do the research and get the pulse on the market as it is right now, right? And that's what I talk about this. Like a lot of the recruiting when you get a role, it's like what's going on, right? NFL free agency, right? Every year, different people are available. Right, not the same people are available every single year. So you gotta again scout. You gotta know who is available in the market at that time. It's very similar to recruiting. So it's like, great, you need this person right now. I'm going to go find out who is available right now, right? That is interested. And it's amazing how that concept is just lost. Recruiters, and they let the client dictate the interaction, the hiring, but they're the ones that have the problem in the first place.
You have to manage a client to the best of your ability, right? Like I'm in a situation. I shouldn't say it's a hypothetical situation where you're waiting a long time for feedback, and the clients are nice, they're responsive, but you don't know the X factors on that side. You don't know that the CEO was on vacation for a week. You don't know that they had a fire drill with a client emergency on that end. And now you have to manage two things. You have to manage the candidates because you don't want to lose them. Time kills deals. It is the truest adage in recruiting. Candidates their interest gets stale. The client forgets about them. So you put in all this upfront work, especially if you're working contingency. You're like, I'm not doing shit until you get back to me. And how do you manage that with the candidate, balancing optics and being transparent at the same time, not scaring them off? It's a lot.
It's a dance, man. It's a dance. It's the art of recruiting. That's why, I think for us, when people set up the system that we have the outreach content, they're like, "Great, I'm going to kill it now." I'm like, "You could maybe, right? But how good are you at the rest of this stuff?" That's why we started doing sales audits and like diving into their foundation there, because like I don't know if I can trust you to have these conversations with all the momentum that we help you build, right? So we gotta figure that out, because that's where the money is.
We didn't
really
even talk about the pitch. We haven't even talked about your pitch and like how you position your services and what your different offerings are, your different models, your success metrics, structure of contracts. Like, damn. I mean, I get on my soapbox to talk about how the anybody who offers a replacement offers a refund instead of replacement in contingency is a fucking idiot, and they've ruined it. Why would
they
you
kill it
rather
for
offer
us.
a refund because you're only offering a refund because you don't. People are like, no, I will offer a refund because I'm so confident in my work. Okay, you mean to tell me that you're betting so big on yourself and the candidate for not walking out 2 days later that you're willing to give all that money back? No.
Well, you're betting on the candidate and you're betting on the client.
Yeah, I'm not taking that
Two,
bet.
on so many
Things you can't control.
variables that you cannot control, man.
Never.
And I've heard of 12-month money back guarantees, and
Makes me sick.
it's the worst.
You're ruining the market. You're undercutting people because you're playing into a client's risk factor.
Yeah.
They're already mitigating risk factor by using contingency. Any client that believes in you from a partnership and relationship is going to take retained, container, hourly, RPO, whatever the hell you want to call it, and pay you for your time, even if you may not fill the role.
So how'd you get there? Was it always contingent for you? Were you always starting at RPO and because I know you do mostly RPO now, right? And,
well, it's a mix.
It's
a healthy mix depending on the client size and the number of roles. When it's multiple roles, I really like to pitch the white glove RPO. It's a win-win for everybody. It's more cost effective. I have guaranteed income coming in. It's an embedded relationship. It's a partnership. We're working directly with hiring managers. With one of our clients, we're working directly with the recruiters, and they position us as we are there to supplement them. These internal recruiters have 30, 40 recs on their plate, and they're handing off 10 to us because we're specialized and we help them. So that makes them look good. It makes the company look good. They fill roles, reduces attrition. So when I started, I learned contingency. I ran a full desk. I still run a full desk. I do biz dev and I delivery, right? I do both. And I learned how to be a contingency recruiter. And that morphed into, at one point when I first went out on my own, one of my first clients that I had at NHP, they hired me hourly. And that's when the light bulb went off and said, not only do I enjoy it, not only do I like the money coming in, but at the end of the day, yes, contingency is home run swings, right? You're not getting a penny straight contingency unless that ball goes over the fence. If it hits the wall and you get a triple, you ain't getting shit. So you balance it out and having a healthy mix of cash flow and then have the contingency on top as icing on the cake. That's my model.
Yeah, I mean, you got to get singles, doubles, right? Triples and home runs.
Spread the ball over the field.
So how do you go? I know a lot of people have questions on RPO. Shoot, I might, especially in the hourly piece. Like, how do you bring that up in the conversation? Right? Is that in the beginning? Are people used to using RPO that you work with? Is it brand new?
Good question.
So I don't
use the term RPO. It is RPO. For anyone that's recruitment process outsourcing organization.
For our people will know what it means. But yeah, so what term do you use?
I call it talent on demand.
Okay, I like that.
I call it whatever the hell you want to call it. I just call it hourly recruiting. Honestly, it's hourly embedded recruiting, talent on demand. So it's an interesting conversation because you have to do your research. You have to know how many number of roles, what you're getting into, and think about your success on that role, right? Like, hey, there's a contingency role. It's a $250K salary. I'm going to make $45K on this. I got like 10 people already in mind. This is a slam dunk. I'm going to take the risk, and I'm going to pitch contingency first. The other thing I really try to do when I pitch straight contingency is I pitch exclusivity. Give me the search for 60 days exclusive of any organic inbound applications or anyone you have in process, and I will shave a point off the fee. And they're like, all right, we like you. You're proving results. Fuck it. Save us a couple $1,000, right? Now, if I see multiple roles, I'll say, hey guys, I'm just gonna lay out to two different models here. This is option A, contingency, just to give you back a napkin. If I fill all four of these roles, you're paying me, $200,000, or 3 months hourly. We have our little secret formula that we work on the back end. And then they say, well, RPO doesn't have a guarantee on it. What happens if you don't fill the role? Well, I go, that's the risk, right? But you have a 2-week out period if you don't like the way things are going. If I don't like the way things are going, you could bail out, but you're still paying us for our time. And at the end of the day, if it takes us 8 weeks to fill a role at the hourly rate, it's always going to come in lower than the contingency fee. So you lay it out to them and let them decide. And I'm happy either way. But I like to take the RPO these days because it's money in the bank.
No, absolutely. And I think you're reframing the way that they're used to thinking about recruiting, right? Because recruiting isn't just the home run, finding the right person. It's all the work you're putting in that they don't have the ability or the time or the ability to do, or the tools and the resource. And I think that's what I always want
listen
recruiters
to their problem,
think.
listen to their resources, listen to their pain points.
Yes. So that was going to be, so you approach the discovery. I mean, we
Discovery.
talk about the pitch. I mean, do you even pitch? When
My
do you
pi-
pitch?
my
Yeah.
pitch is a conversation, just like I do podcasting. And
Yeah.
it's at the end of the conversation after I've listened to them, understanding their needs, understanding what their gap is, where they're having issues. Because sometimes they hire us and it's a confidential executive search, and that's straight contingency,
No.
right? Because I need to approach it differently. There's a different level of time, and there's going to be a higher fee on it. And it's a riskier, there's different conversations to be had. But again, it comes down to just traditional one-on-one business tactics. Listen, identify the problem, and come up with a solution for them.
It's the fundamentals always win, and that's all it is. And even at the takeaway for people listening, or if you're listening, is just discover. As you said, the conversation is the pitch, and just that one takeaway I know has kind of changed a lot of recruiters' roles that we worked with, like a significant amount. I know it's changed your life, my life, because you'll worry, you'll get the revenue, you'll do all that if you have enough of the right conversations. Like it can't help but follow.
Yeah, I mean, it's the pitch, it's the conversation, it's exploring. It's fascinating, letting them tell you what they don't like. Like, oh, the best. I love it when they're like, I got to tell you, Adam. I got to tell you, Clark. We've had some really bad experiences with other recruiters. Oh, tell me more.
Yes.
What was it about them? What didn't you like about them? And now I'm able to give them examples to reassure them that's not what we do, and not just talk shit, but back it up. Oh, yeah, we worked with X, Y, and Z client. Why don't you reach out to them and see what their experience is like with us? Why did they love working? Why have they been an anchor client for 4 years with NHP? Because they like working with us. We're transparent. We're truthful. We're fair. We deliver. Right? Because what's the pitch? What makes your agency different? It's the people. It's how hard we work. It's our depth of the network and specialization.
Well, we care more about our candidates. We care more
really
about our candidates,
We
and
go
we
deeper.
save you time and money. We save you time and money.
Tell me something that has not been pitched to me. It's
Yeah.
really hard. I have trouble thinking of that on every pitch. So I just rely on who I am and what I do, right? Like that's a great question for you and your flow. Like how are you going to handle that rebuttal in the sales pitch process? Why are you different than everybody else? I've had terrible experience. What makes you different? Why am I going to sign up with Digital Recruiter and deal with the same shit I dealt with when I dealt with X, Y, and Z agency?
Oh yeah. I get it all the time.
Show, don't
And
tell.
like,
show, don't tell. Show,
I was
don't
like,
tell.
you see the testimonials, shoot them a LinkedIn message. Go look at their LinkedIn and see what you think about it. Right? Go look at.
How about this? How about this? And straight up, Kevin and I were on a kickoff call with a new client 2 days ago, and the client goes, "Hey, Kevin, remind me a couple of those folks that you hired." And he looks them up. He goes, "They've been here for 2 years. I know them. They're great." Like,
our prices just went up. No.
Yep. Now pay me. Fuck you, pay me.
Yeah, exactly. And like that's. So we've established that you know what you're doing when it comes to getting clients, qualifying great business, figuring out the pricing model. I know it takes a lot of work. I know you didn't do that overnight.
No,
it's trial and error,
optimization.
It's optimization, patience, right, playing the long game, and a little bit of basic math, which eludes many recruiters.
Yeah, I mean, put your numbers into a spreadsheet, figure out your margins, figure out the level of effort, figure out the hours, and then have 3 sets of numbers, right? You have, if I'm doing RPO model, right? This is the pure rate. This is hey, I'm going to come out at a discount here to get them to make this happen and still make a good nut on it. And this is the absolute lowest I will go where I'm still making money because I want this deal. That's how I lay out 3 numbers when I'm doing RPO.
It's
and retainer.
Almost like having your value prop, having your boundaries, all that ahead of time is
always
key. What do you say to someone just starting out that's like, maybe I haven't made a placement, or I feel like I found my niche, but I don't have the testimonials that they asked me for my own agency, at least? How do you how did you mitigate that in the first few months?
Well, it's weird. I hate to say this, but it's almost like I actually endorse industry agnostic, certain times working for free or a very low cost. And I've done it before early on, and now I don't have to do it, where it's like, our first placement you would be 10%. Let me just show you what I could do. But in that contract, so they don't fuck you the next time. It's like first placement's 10, next one's at 20 moving forward. Like it has to be written in stone.
Yeah, because you got to get a testimonial out of it.
Yeah, you're gonna get a testimonial out of it. So there is a value to you. There's an ROI on that work that you're doing.
Yeah.
And also, I've done work for people early on where I'm just doing market research for them. Hey, listen, that was a great call that we had. I understand that you don't have any open needs. Thank you for. And then like a week later, I'm like, by the way, you mentioned on the call that you were looking to do some benchmarking on the marketing director role. Here's what I did for you. We spent some time. We put this together. Here you go. And they're like,
Interesting.
right,
Well, then you could productize. You had the productized services a little bit. Like Will McGee talks about that a lot. I mean, that's kind of his offer is productizing. Like, can you do just sourcing or just screening? Like, again, listen to their problems and figure out what they could actually have you fix.
Talk about that for a second, too. We've listened to that, and we do that with RPO. We have clients, when I say the RPO, I go, you're paying us an hourly rate. We could do A to Z. We could do soup to nuts. We could hold that candidate's hand and walk them to the finish line and cross them. Or if you have a great internal team that's going to handle the whole process, they're going to handle scheduling, they're going to handle all that, and you want to use our time where you're the weakest, which is sourcing and screening, where steps A and B, that's where we're going to put our time and our money. So that comes back down to the discovery call.
Yeah.
Right?
There's so many ways to
10,
split
20
it
hours a week to work these roles and just fill your pipeline all day long.
Instead of going and just getting a bunch of agreements signed, contingent, just please sign, discover, get as many problems as you can, find out everything you can, get the intel, then you'll know how to operate, right? Because it sounds like you got a bunch of intel from your prospects and you figured out proposal here, proposal there, all that, and then you get some people starting to say yes, you get some proof points. Like, it's almost like playing the long game. In a sense.
Oh, the long game is my game. The long game is, dude, I preach it. The long game is the only game in town. Now, with that being said, there's short transactional wins. You have to take them when they come. One-offs, this and that. 4-week assignment just for one role. Shoot, let's bang it out. Make a quick couple of bucks. Yeah. But you know what that's all about. But that's also going to open the door because if you do that well, you're going to get the next role.
Exactly. Right. Just being able to see opportunity, having vision, knowing what is worth it long term and those people, the way they talk to you, it's like, this ain't going anywhere. And also, do I want this to go anywhere? Because
not all clients are good.
We know this jerk and everything else. Yeah. And just knowing that, being able to have your walk away point.
Well, that's
I'm sure you've had to walk away and fire.
I fired a client too, and there's also quiet firing too. When you're doing straight contingency and you're not getting any response, you just don't deliver. Like what? Oh, okay, I'm just not gonna do shit anymore.
Okay. Well, that's it. Yeah, have a nice life. But
even with those, I still communicate that. Right? It's a long. I'm gonna say it kind of like the rough kind of way. It's like, hey, listen, we have 5 candidates in play. We've been waiting 3 weeks. For me as a contingency recruiter, obviously my compensation is based on the candidate accepting the role. And if it's not moving on your end, I appreciate the opportunity, but we'll keep an eye on these candidates, but we're going to move on to another client. And sometimes that lights a fire. They're like, oh yeah, actually we kind of like those candidates. What's happening there? Because maybe they wanted to see who was coming in organically because they didn't want to pay your ass. I hate that. Get the fuck out of here.
It's the absolute worst, but you got to be filtering for that at all times. I think what you just said is that's all you got to do. You got to remove like the emotion from it, like state the facts. It's just like, hey, this is what's going on. I get it. You guys got stuff going on. We're going to move on. And it's amazing what that can do to, again, to reveal where someone's at. People aren't used to, I would say, hearing no or getting moved on from, especially not from agency recruiters, right? They're used to the thirst, the desperation. So when you can flip the tide, it's so, there's a low barrier to entry, but it is so easy to stand out in recruiting if you know what you're doing, or if you know the right way.
Do things the right way. Like my biggest aha moment was to slow down a little bit. And I've done that a couple of different ways. Instead of responding right away to an email, I might craft that email and I'll sit on it. Or I'm a big fan of the scheduling tool. Like when you're too thirsty for something, like I'm super ADD when it comes to email. I'm inbox zero. I'm always on top of everything. So if I see an email, I'll respond to it, but I'll set it for an hour or two later. If it's not timely, time sensitive.
Oh yeah, I like it.
Right? Because that way it's not like I'm not too thirsty. I'm not jumping on things. And it also give me a minute to like have a built-in undo. Maybe something changes in those couple hours. Maybe my mindset changes. Maybe I've thought of a different approach. So I'm looking right now. I have 2 emails scheduled for tomorrow. I'm looking right now, two.
Well, I like it as the undo tool because sometimes I don't mind replying quick.
If it's
If I'm in the flow,
Who
and it's
cares?
just like, otherwise I can forget or something like that. And sometimes it gives me an opportunity to show that kind of that goodwill. Like, man, he responded within 30 seconds. It's like, well, you caught me at the right time, because
Yeah, I'm just literally looking at my inbox.
I don't respond for 8 hours. Yeah, because I'm on calls and recording podcasts or whatever all day. So,
and it's also having systems too. Like for me, like, you know, not to get too into the weeds, I'm looking down at my Gmail. I have a color coded, I tag everything, and I've been doing that since day one. And I have a big red one that I use as follow up. I put it on anything that I know I need to follow up with. And the first thing I do every morning is filter in the follow ups and use the nudge feature to see what's important. So you need to have systems as a recruiter, especially if you're a one person shop. You need to have systems. You need to be organized. You need to, you know, have it down. Sorry, my daughter's just calling. Let me text her. Keep going.
Yeah, no, I got you.
What's up,
dude? You got to pick up the kids from school or something?
No, they're off.
Yeah, good. Go and come back. Oh no,
no, she's off from school this week. They have a couple of days off for Easter break, and she's home with her friends, and she's asking me like stupid shit. I'm like, I'm working.
Do we have chips? Yeah. Can you make me a sandwich?
Could me and my cousin walk to, you know, the corner to the pizza place? I'm like, you don't know I'm working. You know I'm working, but you know you're not interrupting anything. But that's what you get with 12-year-olds. So, you know, for new recruiters out there, I think it really comes down to organization from a business development, from a recruiting standpoint. Utilize your systems, whether it be the internal LinkedIn systems, your external tools, your tech stack, any other kind of workflow organization that you're using. Embrace it. Find your systems, find what works for you, but also don't overly rely on them. Like, find me. I'm still old school. I Post-its. I love Post-its, man. I Post-its and I rip them up and they're done.
We can't optimize every single part of your day, because you have to have the structure and be creative within it in recruiting, and be able to be flexible and innovative when it calls for it, right? What are they asking you? What type of pizza they need to get? I'm just kidding.
I'm just shutting it off. They're freaking annoying me now. Yeah.
All right. Well, I want to dive into, for the second half of this, the podcast, the Pozcast. You got what, you hit 1 million downloads, right?
I hit that last year.
Last year? What are you at?
We're like 1.7.
Ooh, almost at 2. That's insane. So you started in 2019, right? Not even.
Yeah, podcast was
right?
5. We just celebrated 5 years.
5 years. Okay.
5 years on February 19th.
That's awesome. That's a huge number. So you've built this whole agency. So people are going to hear the first part, like, all right, this guy's got it dialed in with systems and recruiting, contingent pricing models, all that. Now you're doing this whole podcast, 1.7 million downloads. You've had, I was looking through, I was listening to Kevin Smith episode, Chris Pronger, who's a legend. I was like, Hall of Fame. How do you know him? Are you kidding me? Like, I grew up playing NHL 95 and everything else.
Him and I were just texting last night. Like, it's cool. Like, they're just human beings.
Well, so I want to get into that. And I was like, Chris Jericho, Tucker Maxx, Lee Steinberg, who a lot of people might not know, but I know because I was a sports nut, which is like, he's a legend.
He's Jerry Maguire, by the way, for anyone out
there. Jerry Maguire. He's literally Jerry Maguire.
He's also Pat Mahomes' agent who found Pat Mahomes. Yeah. So, yeah, this guy knows what he's doing.
Legit. I mean, you've had some big guests. I mean, how did you get this network? How do you get, these, you're a guy with a recruiting agency. How do you get all these big names on? I know that people want to know.
Relationships, man. Yeah. And there's a couple things. One is relationships, introductions, leveraging your relationships for those introductions, building out a brand, being a good podcast host, but almost a podcast host. The pandemic was good for me for recruiting, and I mean for podcasting and recruiting, but podcasting because people were home, and you were able to get certain guests on that you wouldn't normally get, and it's outreach and it's connection because people are home and they're like, I'll jump on Adam's show. I'd help this little guy out. So there's two different categories of guests that I have. I have the bait celebrity guests that are the big names, and also the big mark names. I've had, CMOs, CEOs of big companies, Bozeman St. John, who's a freaking legend, amazing people there through relationships. And then I have the business development side of it, where I figured out early on that my show was a Trojan horse for business development, and it happened organically. So the origins of the show in 2019 was, I have a network of people leaders, TA people, and I'm going to interview them and get some gold and wisdom out of it. But the more I got into it, Clark, the more I enjoyed the conversation, the more I enjoyed learning about their story and learning about their journey. And within that, I would pull out the wisdom, the pivots, how you got there, what did you learn, how do you hire, how do you fire, what skills do you look for when looking for people? And people, my audience started to like that. So I started to book more of these type of guests. And then on one of the follow-ups, I'm having a conversation with the guests over email, and they're like, "Oh, I see you do recruiting also. We got a couple of open roles. I'd love to talk about it." I'm like, "I didn't even pitch you." But what I did is I built a rapport and a relationship, got to know them, added credibility, thought leadership, and authenticity through the podcast that I know what the hell I'm talking about. They got to like me, and that's when the light bulb went off. And I would say in the last 5 years, 70% of my business has come through recruiting business has come through the podcast. Because now instead of having my hand out, cold email, cold calling, I build it all through the podcast. And then all the ancillary halo effects that come in from the content and people seeing the brand and associating the two of them together. Content, thought leadership. This guy knows about recruiting. He knows what the hell he's talking about. And I told you before, like very little traditional biz dev. So not everybody could do this. You can't just say, I love what I heard Adam do there. I'm just going to start a podcast and all of a sudden reach out to 1 million people. The podcast takes an insane amount of passion, work, dedication. There's a thing called pod fade. And I think the stat is 90% of shows don't make it past 7 episodes because people don't realize the amount of work that goes into it. To do this every week, 52 weeks a year, 5 years, 330 shows, new show every week. Doesn't happen easily.
I've learned it. It's been really fun. I've had some just really cool people like yourself, Kevin, Benjamin Mena, that have like given me a bunch
Love
of
what
tips
Ben's doing,
and
by the
advice.
way. He was like me 4 years ago, and he's gonna jump over me soon because he's doing everything right that I did wrong in the beginning, and he's awesome. I mean,
he's not
really
as
good host as me, but he's a good dude.
He's a really good dude, and
I support the hell out of him.
It's dude, the event, he had like over 600 people registered, and it was free, and people are like they bought the replays just because like they couldn't believe how much actionable stuff was in there, and that's why I wanted to record this and talk about what you're doing, because to me there's so much BS out there, so much information. Actionable stuff is what people love. And even you just saying that, it's not for everyone. Know what your strengths are, right? Know are you ready for a podcast, or you can kind of do it something, do it a little bit different way. What do you recommend? Or I guess, how do you know if you're built for the podcast game or not? Just from an interview perspective, not even production.
Yeah. Get on a call with a client that you like and trust and are friends, and be like, "Hey, I got this idea for a podcast. You got half an hour? Can I just record a Zoom call with you for a test? Have an idea. How do you want to approach it? Have some questions written down and see if you like it." And you need to have a loose idea of your why, what kind of show it's going to be. You don't have to be baked. It doesn't have to be fully baked. But you also have to want to do it, because a lot of companies that I work with, I do podcast consulting too for B2B. That's a whole other fun thing I never really talk about. They're like, the marketing team's doing annual planning. They're like, all right, we're on social. We got some other things. And then Bob's like, we should start a podcast. And he's like, Sue, you're great. You're the life of the party. Why don't you host it? And Sue's like, what the fuck, Bob? I don't want to do this shit, right? Like, and then, okay, who's going to record it? Who's going to produce it? What are we going to talk about? How are we getting guests? How are we distributing it? You know how many people I talk to and they don't even understand like how it works? Where like, it's like, how do you get your show on Apple? It's very simple. I have a podcasting platform. I put my RSS feed in it and distributes to all the platforms at once. I don't post it to Apple every day. Come on.
Well, a shout out to Christina and Riley, because without them, this wouldn't happen or exist or
have a team.
Anything else. Awesome team. Like, just so loyal and just like down to just figure stuff out. And we have learned a lot since
that's
started
a podcasting
doing this in August. Yeah.
And how about that journey too? When I started podcasting 5 years ago, I had a 3-person team that was handling old school video and audio editing and like Adobe Premiere and like all these like audio programs. Dude, Riverside right now, what we're using, and I've tried to pitch them for a while, you can, and I've done this before because I've had to scale up and down, you could literally produce your whole show, transcripts, clips, audio, video, AI, social clips in 10, 15 minutes. You could be a one-man shop.
You really can. It's amazing what the tools can do, and the AI cut-ups and all this other stuff. I mean, it's nuts.
Dude, I transformed my 14 individual interviews. We produce it, me and my producer. We got them created and done within a week. 14 episodes. Interviews. And that's me reviewing each one of them, timestamps, transcripts, LinkedIn posts, this, that, boom, boom, and boom. And like, you never would have been able to do that two things without a system, process, experience. And you wouldn't be able to do that 5 years ago.
And is that you guys just been figuring out over the years and perfecting the system and researching? I mean, how much time do you spend a week just on the podcast?
I would say I'm about 25% a week.
20%, yeah. Wow.
And I literally had to figure it out because it's like, where am I putting my time and what feeds what? And what takes more time? Recruiting takes time. The phone calls, like two phone calls is an hour. 2 candidate screens is an hour. Right? Like recruiting is time. No matter how many AI outreach tools, you still have to talk to candidates, you still have to talk to clients.
Well, the only reason you have the tools is to get more time to talk to the candidates.
Anything that I can't do well, or anything that I could pay somebody to do faster, better, more efficient, where I don't have to learn how to do that because I don't need to learn how to do that, I'm going to outsource it.
You have to.
Back in the day, I didn't want to learn video and audio editing, so I paid somebody to do that so I could focus on my business.
The same here. That's why I've trained up. Christina started doing it, and she figured it out, and she trained Riley because he wanted to learn. Right, 22-year-old kid wanted to figure out like, all right, how do I do this and can I make a living doing this? And he just like figures it out, and that's what I pay him for. And now it's like, then in January, it like clicked for him. And now it's like, we call him like the hardest working person on the team. He's a 22-year-old kid because he just like, he knows his lane and he's just killing it. I'm like, I would never be able to do this week to week. But it's like, it's such a value add. I mean, just even figuring out what people want to do and want to learn. And like, that's how you can kind of bring them on and train them up. Like, what does your ideal day look like? What do you want to learn? And again, same thing. Like I start them at a certain rate and then it can kind of bump up. And that's how you kind of build a team in founder mode and small company mode. And it can be crazy powerful. And now we have, thousands of downloads and nothing crazy.
It's great.
Not 1.7 million, but I'm getting messages all the time about this. And it's
it took me a full year to get over 200 downloads an episode. I could have given up.
I don't know what I'm at.
I could have given up.
I think I'm at 200. Yeah.
I could have given up.
But it's the quality, man.
I thought about it. You know what? No, I never thought about quitting. I thought about slowing down. I thought about there's times when I get fatigued, and I combat that by scheduling shows that I'm always 6 to 8 episodes ahead. And I manage my calendar out. Like I know June is going to be crazy for me, family, kids, graduation, camp, and all that. So I'm only recording 2 episodes in June, but I have shows that take me through July.
Yeah.
Right? It's having 6 to 8 in the can, batch production, mining your calendar so I don't get overwhelmed. And plus I got 14 episodes that started today that have now pushed out 3 other episodes 3 weeks out.
It's so smart. I mean, record once, right? Or, record 2 hours. And just thinking strategically.
I have 3 next week.
And instead of doing cold email and a bunch of cold calls, you do that. And you go on LinkedIn because that's where, quote unquote, the fish are, right? That's where the prospects are and everywhere else. And then you got them, and your social proof and your authority is 5 million times higher, actually infinity higher than the 20 cold emails I got this morning. No,
dude. And what do you do? Delete. So it's a balancing act too, because now I'm also getting pitched. I'm once your podcast hits certain charts and levels, you just get into all these like PR feeds that you get hammered and guest pitches, and 95% of them are shit, irrelevant. But sometimes you get one, and I look at all of them. I review every one of them because that's where the gold is, Clark. I'll get one and be like, we're pitching you a founder of a marketing agency that just hit 200 employees specializing in XYZ. And I'm like, gold, ding, ding, ding. I'm going to interview that founder, and now I'm going to convert them into a client.
So I'm going to talk to you after this. I got one of those today. I'm starting to get a couple of those, which is interesting. I'm gonna, as they say in the consult, I'm going to pick your brain on that after we hit record, because I got a couple of those and be curious on your feedback. So it's like you do go through everything, and you kind of have to, and just figure out what's going to make most sense for your business. But you really do, you have to focus on protecting your time.
Your time is everything, dude.
Yeah.
And I was really bad for the last couple of years at saying no to things. I say no to intro calls that are, it's just going to be a pitch slap. Just random candidates that are kind of outside my area that just want to like pick my brain. Right? If you want to pick my brain, you could put money in my wallet. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like there are times, and I'm not trying to sound like a dick, but like there's times when I have bandwidth that I take those calls because I always want to give back. And I think it's the right thing to do for the industry. I want to share my knowledge. But when I'm busy and things are cooking, like I just don't have time for that. So learning how to say no, I think, is an incredible, it's a power that
Not
I haven't
right
always had.
now.
I have not always had. Not right now. Not right now is a great response. Not right now is not a no.
It's not. And I've also gotten to have it because of the network I have. You know, people see digital recruiter, they can assume I'm a recruiter or whatever else. And I do have an agency as well, but it's just like, hey, here's 5 people I think you should connect with, right? That I know your industry
I do that
or
too.
could actually be better served. And just even introduce them to a new LinkedIn connection. They can use my name. Hey, Clark told me to reach out, right? I've seen what that's happened. I mean, I got a client that just placed like 5 or 6 contractors with a client that does back office work.
Mm-hmm.
That's great money for that guy. I asked for nothing. I don't need a referral fee.
It's called karma, man. It's going to come back to you tenfold, man.
But it's fun. It's fun to help facilitate that stuff, right? I mean, that's how you operate. Is like, just what can I help facilitate that? Again, doesn't take all my time. That was an intro on LinkedIn. It took me 15 seconds to write the message, right? And it could open up those people's worlds. And I think more people thinking that way, more recruiters thinking that way, less how do I make my commission? How do I make my money, my placement? It's just how do I facilitate conversations in the network and be known as that person, right? Be known as that guy or girl.
But be strategic about it.
Right.
Don't just take any jerky call.
It can't be anything, right? I mean, you can't do every industry. I mean, you really did it with marketing, agency, leveraging what you'd already done. So you did that in your world, right? Figure out your world, your lane, and then do it within there. And that, just that step alone, you're ahead of 90% of people, 95%.
Inch wide, mile deep.
That's it, man. That's all it is. So when did you run the podcast? When did it start to like really hit? Like, oh, I got something here, and we're getting downloads. Like, what was that moment?
It was after it was a year in. I mean, honestly, I think it was kind of picking up steam. It was great on LinkedIn because I was part of the big content revolution. I've been on the platform for a long time, so I've established myself. I haven't faded away, and I just saw my lane, and I saw the content niche that I needed to stay in, and it was the podcast content. And does it drive the likes and the comments as much as some of the fluff and the other shit out there? No, but I don't care about that because that's not driving business. You could argue that if you talk to certain people on LinkedIn because that's their game. They're trying to sell you the system to do that, and that's fucking a whole other conversation that gets my goat. But you know, I started to see real engagement. I started to see folks in my industry connecting with me because of the content. And that's how I built my network of candidates and clients. And that's when I knew that the podcast was working. I also knew that the podcast for me wasn't about the number of downloads. I would take 1 download per episode if that's going to generate 1 client per episode all day long. I'll take that. I will trade that for anything. I will take it to the bank all day long. Because if I was going after the monetization from the ad platform, you can't make money on podcasting traditional way with ads unless you're over 10,000 downloads an episode. The CPM model does not work like that. So once I realized that wasn't my move and I wasn't going to put 100% of my time into it, and that the podcast was going to be used as a business development vehicle, that's when I said, let me be smarter about the guests. Let me be smart about why I have this podcast. And it came down to thought leadership, business development, and that was the aha moment for me, Clark. What's a sound clip? Give me that. Send that back to me, man.
It's minute 46 to 48. Adam kills it. Clip post. That's it. We'll get some subtitles. We'll get some music.
I do that with guests too. Like when a guest says something, I will literally say on the show, go clip it, and I'll know also technically I'm going to go back and make that clip. And it's funny.
I do that on my content interviews. Yeah, it's like this is for the transcript, right? This is for the transcript. I'm with you. We'll make sure to clip that and get that sent over to you.
And I'll tag you on it too. That's the other thing too. When you tag clients, when you tag people's content and they share it.
Oh,
that's the goal. You want them to share.
Well, I mean, for those that don't know, you're at what, 40,000 followers?
Yeah, I just crossed 40,000 organically, 100% organically. And the other game people don't realize how to play, it's so stupid. Like so many stupid coaches are like, no, connect with everybody because they turn into a follower. So if you do the max out connections in a year and a half, you'll already have 30,000 followers. I'm like, dude, I have 21,000 connections and I want to eliminate 5,000 of them. And I don't care about how it's going to affect my followers because I need those connections for real connections. So I implore people at least twice a year to spend an hour or two and clean out your connections.
You curated. I mean, I think I got 99% are agency recruiters for me. So I'm very happy.
Think about your audience. Curate that. People that are playing the vanity game could.
I mean, good luck. I guess
That's
I've
your
seen
game.
it. I've seen some of those influencer accounts, managed some of them, and it's at least manage the inbox. And I know what it turned into. Like you're better
You were
off
there.
find
You
your
were there.
lane, target them, connect with the right
You
people.
did
The
this.
right, you know, I saw the whole thing. I saw behind the, and it was
Yeah.
a great experience. I have nothing bad to say about those people, but I saw what it did. And if you have conflicting messages in your offer and your LinkedIn, like, again, pick your lane, know what you're offered, know how you help people, and just talk about that. And stop trying to be all things to everyone. And
Then you're
man,
nothing to
LinkedIn turns
nobody.
into a gold mine. Yeah, yeah, exactly. Well, and know who pays the bills or who can pay your bills. I think people get away from that.
Dude, how about the
And
people that are like,
yeah,
hey, the only way to grow on LinkedIn is spend 6 hours, 7 hours a day commenting. Yeah, I read your comments. They're garbage. What is that doing aside from putting you in their face? Oh, no, it keeps me front and center, for the. I'm like, I could think of a lot better things to drive business for 7 hours a day than
dude,
sitting there
half the
commenting
time
on
people end up
Nunix.
think you don't. Half the time people think you don't work if you
Or you have somebody
do
doing
all
that
that
for you, and
stuff.
it's even worse. But
Yeah,
we digress.
yeah, I know. It's yeah. Well, let's dive in. Like, why'd you start your own business? I mean, I know you're sick of working for other people, but like,
It came down simple to my wife saying I wasn't happy at the agency I was at. She said, "Why are you giving half your commission to the house? Can't you do this on your own?" I'm like, "Yeah, and I don't have to go to the city." Like it was
yeah,
really as simple as that. It's like, okay, what are they giving you for half of the commission?
yeah,
What tools? Okay, how much is LinkedIn Recruiter? Do you need it? Can you use Recruiter Lite for a fraction of that? Could you buy a CRM platform? Yeah. What does that cost? Okay, do the math on that. You're still in the green. And I just said, fuck it, I'm done. And luckily for me, my wife does well where I could take and plus I was working on a draw. It's not I was leaving a huge salary behind. Like
yeah.
there wasn't a lot of risk involved. And I bet on myself. And I don't think, and I'm not going to say it's 99% sure, unless it was the most incredible opportunity in the world, would I go back to working for a company. It would have to be head of talent for my dream company and dream job, which I can't even define for you right now. And
It,
a number that's going to take this number away and also still let me do the podcast.
Yeah, right there, you get to that place, man, and I'm with you. I even got it, dude, the audacity. I got to that place like 2 months into doing this. I was like, no, like someone tried to offer me. I was like, I would need at that place
Double.
when I was just still building. I was like, at least a quarter, like a quarter of a mil, 300 as a base for a recruiter or BD. They're like, yeah, that's not happening. I'm like, I know it's not happening, but that's what was already the first 3-5 months of business with the system in place and the content and the leads.
But many
I
don't have
knew
that, and they can't.
I knew what it was there. I was like, what do I don't need you anymore.
But not many people could
Like,
do what we do, Clark. Not. It takes us. In my LinkedIn post yesterday, like it takes a certain breed to be able to do what we do because you have to be able to handle the lows and the losses. And listen, man, last year was brutal for me. My business was down 70% due to market factors. I'm doing my taxes tonight. I'm scared as fuck tonight. And actually, I shouldn't be because I know I didn't make that much, but I'm very open about that. And I've had 5 straight years of hockey stick continuous year-over-year growth. I know what I'm doing. I have a good model. And last year crashed for me because of my market not hiring. When they're firing people, they're firing recruiters. They certainly aren't hiring people, and they certainly don't need external recruiters. And that's why I doubled down back on the podcast and doubling down on the sponsorship. And we talked about earlier the future plans, what I'm doing with the show. That I was like, God damn it! Thank God I had that shitty year last year because I may not have been doing that right now.
it really does. Things do happen for a reason. Opportunity can come when you're down and out, and that's great. I mean, a lot of people had tough years last year, and then for you to have the pot, like figure out that leverage and be able to double down and even increase that as a monetary stream. I mean, it's just your lane. You're able to, for the same amount of hours that we all get, able to create so many more opportunities for yourself. And at the absolute worst of it, with your network, I'm sure there's a dozen people that would hire you today.
Yeah, and
if need be,
and
right?
well, maybe half a dozen. And I also think
Half a
also,
dozen, four,
what if last year I only had the recruiting business and not the podcast?
right?
I might be out of the business right now. I might be going back to something else.
So even having a brand can mitigate
The
so
brand,
many other
the
things.
brand stayed high. The content, I never took my foot off the gas on the content. And listen, I always go back to a conversation. I actually love always repeating this. My recruitment mentor, a gentleman by the name of Joe Mullings. Anybody out there, MedTech, the Mullings Group down in Florida, been around for 30 years, best in the business, MedTech. He's a mentor of mine. And I remember it was like a week into the pandemic, and I called him and I was like, Joe, what the hell's going on? I don't know what to do. And he's like, you have two choices right now. You could curl up in a ball and die and roll over, or you could step up and be invaluable to your clients when there's no business to be had. And I followed that advice and I stuck with it. And I followed that for content. I followed that for how I'm going to, help my clients out. And they were the first ones to call me when things got back. And those first 2.5 years of the pandemic were a gold mine for me. Best 3 years of business of my life.
What has that done? Just that mindset, just being in the weeds as a founder, owner, right? Right in the highs, right in the lows. Like, what has that done? Just like personally, when you look back to like who you were 9 years ago, 7 years ago,
I
to
couldn't
now.
do this. I couldn't do this. And I talk about it all the time. It's like I couldn't do what I do now at 22, and that's not a knock on 22-year-old founders, because they have a product, they have an idea, but they don't have the life experience. And only a very, very few, less than 1% of the ones that you see that are these unicorns, these 22-year-old founders. Yes, there's technology now. Yes, there's digital learning, e-courses, all that to learn this shit, but nothing replaces experience. That's it.
I'm with you, dude. I think about when I was 22, when I was 25, 26, trying to work. I was technically remote or had my own schedule. I was an absolute mess, right? Selling third-party telecom. I couldn't do a remote job like at all at the time. Like I needed that structure. I needed Aerotech to whip me into shape and to do all those things. And then I was ready. After even 2018, I wasn't quite ready. And I was 31 then. And I was a little bit directionless. And like but I just kept kind of showing up and talking to people. And then you kind of find your lane, right? You have a good attitude and you become likable. That's like
resilience.
Honestly, half the battle to getting opportunity, and then being resilient is the other half.
Resilience. Last year, I mean, I had some of my darkest thoughts in 2023, and it put me in bad places. And it was a battle every day to keep going. I mean, I had thoughts, and no knock on Uber drivers or anything. I had thoughts of, hey, maybe I should, jump in the car and utilize some time to make some cash, or maybe I should go to Home Depot and pick up some hourly work just to supplement things. And instead of that, I used the time to double down on the business and the brand. And knock on wood, this year's off to a really great start.
That's awesome. One of the things, and you have been open about that, and even since I think we first talked in November, I know I met Kevin like last summer, and he mentioned like you got hit hard, but I've never heard an inkling of you blaming anyone or anything, or like
I blame the market.
There's just yeah, and it's just
you can't control it.
Just taking that ownership. Well, you took the ownership of like, all right, what am I going to do? Like,
how do I accountability, man?
Yeah.
So many people are just, they play the blame game because they can't own it. They can't own their losses. You can't own your shit, and that goes back to my core story of when I got fired. I owned that loss. I was like, you know what? I fucked up this opportunity. I could have done this better. I wasn't doing great at my job. I wasn't doing great at managing, inter-office relationships. I deserve to get fired. And I say it all the time. If you're getting fired, not let go, and you don't know it's coming, something's wrong with you. Unless there's some outstanding circumstances. But like if it's performance related, you're not doing a good job because you're not feeling the love, from the company. When you suck. Come on, man. Yeah. It's not a surprise. So for me, that was a self-awareness epiphany that changed everything, where I'm like, I'm going to be more accountable for my mistakes. And once you own that shit and you can synthesize it and you can learn from it and you can move on, it takes stress off your plate. Yes, there's stress involved with losses, but you own it and you learn from it and grow.
Knowing everything that your fault is very freeing, because it means that you have control to do something about it. You can't control everything, but we typically leave a lot more on the table than we're willing to admit. And that was, I'm with you, man. That was a big realization for me. I've talked about it on other podcasts, on this one, like 2015, I think I was 28. And I was like, is this really the person I'm going to be the rest of my life? Like I just felt so average. And it just like hit me kind of like in a wave, and my grandmother got sick and everything. She was like one of my best friend growing up and everything else. And it was just like, this is it. This is all I got.
I'm better than this. This is what I expected.
Yeah, it was just like I was just embarrassed. Yeah, like I was like, there's more to do, and I got to do it. And I might not know what that path is, that direction. 2015 it's a long time to 2024. I had no idea that I would live here or do any of this stuff. Right?
Yeah, two beautiful kids. It's like right.
it's crazy.
Like no one
And
thinks when they're a kid of what. Oh, I'm going to be a recruiter when I grow up. I'm going to run a digital
have a
training agency.
podcast and do a LinkedIn
No,
live with Kevin Logan 2 times a
yeah,
week.
right. It's like
Yeah.
no one thinks that too. And you get to a point of your life, and whatever age, it doesn't matter. But there's those milestones in life when you really have to look in the mirror and say, "Am I on the right path? Is this what I want to be doing?" And it's never too late to pivot.
And it's so fun when you take ownership and then you go into attack mode of like, I'm going to realize the potential that, parents always tell you that you have or whatever else. I guess if you're lucky, not everyone has that. You're like, but I did. I was like, well, how do I realize potential? And then you just got to go out and just got to do it. And it doesn't mean you do it every single day. There's days that I was lazy and didn't figure it out, or I got knocked down and all that stuff. And I know you did too. It's like, all right, we just get back up again. And like, well, what do we got? What do we got to do here?
Here's I'll leave you with this. The real light bulb went off for me when I started recruiting. How much I realized I love the hunt, the thrill of the hunt. Yeah. And when you're working a 9 to 5, you're going to get that paycheck every week. But when you have to hunt for it, when you have to go out and hunt and kill what you're going to eat, and if you don't kill, you're not going to eat, your family's not going to eat. That's a drive. And if you have that in you and you could take that and harness it for good, that's when everything changed. When I'm like, oh my God, I love the thrill of the hunt. I love bringing in business. I love closing deals. I love having unlimited earning potential. I love being my own boss. But with that comes a responsibility of the downturn. And can you handle those lows? And nothing prepares you. I've been through 2 of them in 8 years, and they suck, and they're brutal, and they're devastating. But I'm telling you, the comeback is always bigger and better than the setback.
Yeah, you've well said. Well said. And you've always had a great attitude.
Yeah, that too.
I was there for the second one. Oh, we clipped. Yeah, now we're in. Now we're in. It's well said, and it's just hang in there. How you treat people too when things aren't going your way.
The cat on the wall, hang in there.
Yeah. Was it the Will Ferrell? It's hang gliding. What an idiot. Yeah. But it's just, again, how you treat people too when you're down, right? I think you had a great attitude. You've been upfront, like, hey, it's tough right now, but I know it's going to come back, and I'm not going to lash out. And you treat people the right way. You just double down on what was working and conversations and trying to add that value and that insight and putting other people up on that platform, right? And giving them the chance to shine, knowing that it comes back around. It's hard. It's easy to say play the long game. It's hard to do it when the chips are down. It's hard to stick to it.
That is it, man.
So, all right, brother. Was this fun? Anything we want to leave the people with, my friend?
Yeah, man. You can find out more on the Pozcast.com, recruiting stuff, NHP Talent Group, and coaching and Web3 stuff, probably nothingtalent.com. And connect me on LinkedIn, Adam J. Posner. If you go to Adam Posner, you'll probably meet my Australian counterpart from down under, who I've had on my show a couple of times. I do it once a year. I get Aussie Adam on the show, and we have a life update live on the air, and it's just
that's amazing.
Him and he's like, and he works in loyalty marketing, so we're kind of in like the same world. And I check in with him every couple months. LinkedIn pen pals, I call him.
That's fantastic. I had one of those at Aerotech. It was a guy named Clayton, but his last name was spelled a little bit differently. But he hated me because he would get all my emails of people spelling my name wrong. So we had a different relationship. I should say he hated me, but I could tell he got annoyed after a while. But that is hilarious. Well, thank you, my friend. We'll have the links in the episode page for everyone. Adam, appreciate you being on here. Always a fun conversation, and excited to. I think we're gonna meet up at some events here this year. So we'll do some live stuff as well. It'll be fun. So, dude, again, appreciate you, man. Again, thanks everyone tuning in. Give us some love on the rating, all that good stuff. Connect with Adam and check out the podcast too. It's an awesome, awesome show.